Some photos make you jealous. Others make you question physics. And then there are photos from DPPI images, where timing, instinct, and a ridiculous level of confidence come together in every single frame. Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of a series where I break down and share the most inspirational photos and the photographers who took them of everything having to do with motorsport photography. In this episode, we focus on DPPI images, and no, that is not a single photographer. It is, in fact, a whole goddamn squad. As an agency, has been around since 1965. Yes, a mere 6 years after my father was born, DPPI images became an entity. And they have been providing the world with some of the most fantastic motorsport imagery that I have ever seen. However, I did not need to go that far back in their Instagram portfolio to find images that were that good. And I'll be completely honest, it's not because their shots are tack sharp in every single shot. If you have seen the other 4 episodes before this one, you know that tack sharp is not what speaks to me. Sure, those shots get the job done, but that's not what inspires me to go be better every single time. The shots that come out of DPPI as an agency are... how do I explain this? They are prime examples of photographers being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And that in and of itself in motorsport photography is a skill that it kind of can be taught, but honestly it takes the experience of knowing not only the track but the environment. DPPI's photographers have this down to a goddamn science. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Don't actually know why my finger was up. Got my iPad, got my pen. Let's go. So I am actually going to make this quick. A lot of it is going to seem kind of repetitive from the previous 4 episodes, and I want to get to something very specific about their shooters at the end. Now that I say that, this is going to end up being the longest one, isn't it?
1 hour later.
Amazing shot from Monaco, number 1. The depth in this is fantastic. When you look at it immediately, it looks pretty simple, it looks pretty basic, but you'd be very wrong. The positioning of this is everything about the photo. He's behind palm trees and leaves and foliage and plants, and that's layer 1 in the foreground. Then you've got the gate, the track barrier, that's number 2. Then you have the track underneath the car, that's number 3. Then you have the car, and because it's a wide angle lens, there's distortion. The front looks really wide and the rear looks really narrow, so it's a wide angle lens. That's how you can tell. Behind that, you have the rest of the track showing that he's coming around the hairpin. Behind the track, you have the rear sign barrier where it says Monaco right behind the rear wing. And then behind the gate, you have marshals. It looks like 3. There's 2 in clear sight and 1 behind the foliage right in the middle. And then behind the marshals, you have a wall. Behind the wall, kind of over the wall, you've got a couple bystanders on the second layer, it looks like. Then behind the bystanders, you've got 3 stories that are shown. There's clearly more of an apartment or hotel building, and on the 3rd floor you have more bystanders, more onlookers over a balcony. This is just layer after layer after layer of depth, and this was a conscious decision to be there with that understanding of what lens to choose and what framing to show in the crop, and even your positioning as a photographer. This is 100% thought out, and it's wonderful. I'm already spending way too long on this.
Move along.
Great shot, muting of colors, beautiful placement so there aren't that many colors other than really the heat colors, the orange, the red, the yellow. That's the biggest thing about this. There's so much black, so much shadow, and then just the heat colors, and that's what pops. Then when you reverse it going to Red Bull, same style shot, but again, like actually physically reversed because he's coming the other way. It's an overabundance of colors, but a lot of it is on the cool tones. A lot of it is in the blues and the cyans and a little bit of purples and deep navy blues, and this is just layer and layer and layer of depth. And this again is a conscious decision. You can start to see the pattern of where I'm going with all of this. There's depth, there's a conscious decision in every single shot. Well, I say that, and then I show a flurry, and love flurry pans, guys. I really do. The blues and the highlights of that Williams, I don't know which Williams it was, coming around a corner, it's beautifully tracked and placed, and just lovely streaks throughout the entire frame. Back to depth, we're still at Monaco. Layer 1, foreground tire of another car. Layer 2, you have the track in between the two cars. Layer 3, the sparks above the track. Layer 4, the car in front of the sparks that has created the sparks. Layer 5, you have the rest of the track that is going down and the signage of 100 meters, I think, until braking zone or until turn zone. Then past that layer is just people in the stands and in the stadiums, in the seating. And then past that, you have more foliage coming from the foliage on the right of the frame. And then past that, you have just towers and layers of people and balconies and onlookers. And it's just, oh.
Yes, Greg. Yes, yes, yes.
We're going to continue on that trajectory of layers for a second. I think this was somewhere in Italy. I think these two shots show layering almost completely opposite in terms of framing. One has people in the foreground and they're all out of focus until it goes up, and then it's pretty much at the same distance away from the sensor, away from the flange. Yes, getting into gear stuff, but I'll skip that. They're about the same distance away from your camera as the car in the frame. But then you go to this other one where framing isn't necessarily out of focus. This could be a 6.3 or even smaller into like 8s. Beautiful framing, beautiful positioning of those purple flowers right in the front. And that also creates a sense of color contrast, not just framing, not just positioning, but a color contrast, because that purple kind of pulls your eye towards the car instead of just it being all brown and green and gray, and then the pops of red are what the shooter is hoping that's what catches your eye. Instead, he chose to sit behind some really vibrant purple flowers and let that pull you in. And it was a fantastic choice. And it was the same thing with that other shot. It's all color on one side, all variances of colors. And then it goes into the track, and then it becomes brown and kind of a yellow for the dirt and gray. And that's what pulls your eye over there. Also because he's popped up over a jump and he's coming down. All four wheels are off. And the framing on both of these shots is beautifully thought out before the shot ever happened. Now, only because we are looking at car going off, it is a flurry pan. Nothing is perfectly in focus. There's a lot of squiggly lines because that's what the camera was doing. It wasn't a perfect down. There was a little bit of flutter, a little bit of jitter, and that's what creates stuff like this. It's not just that it's a beautiful pan flurry shot. It's the fact that this exact moment in time is so perfect. But the fact that he chose to do this in a pan makes it so that your eye goes to the car because there are 3 wheels off the ground. So it's not just the shot, it's also what the shot captured. Because if the photographer had chosen to stay at like a 5,000th for shutter, everything's frozen. Your eye starts to go to the color first, not necessarily the car. Like, yes, it's motorsport photography, so you kind of assume that people are going to look at the car first. But if there's no color contrast, if there's no highlighting contrast, then the people go to kind of what is in focus, but also what is in color first, or the thing that's different. And the thing that's different on a World Rally Championship photo is color, because we're used to foliage, we're used to cars, so you kind of go to color first. And I'm happy that he chose to instead do a longer exposure, and I'm spending way too long on this. Squirrel! And then here's one with muted tones almost. These aren't oversaturated. These are almost hazed and pulled back on the saturation tones. It's most likely a decision because of the fact that it is backlit. But then let's talk about the rest of those tones. We all know that Ferrari red is vibrant. There is no muting about any of their tones. It's basically McDonald's on steroids because it's red and yellow. All of the reds and yellows in this are kind of pulled back in saturation and maybe even lifted in the lightness just a little, because if you haven't watched my other videos and you haven't understood this on your own, when you increase the brightness, the lightness of a hue, you're actually losing a little bit of saturation. When you deepen the darkness, you actually make the saturation a little more strong. It's hard to describe, but if you play with the saturation and the lightness of that saturation, you'll start to see what I'm talking about. So I think that this photographer not only went backwards just a little on those heated tones and maybe even the overall tones, but he also added in lightness to give another sense of desaturation without actually desaturating it. He just kind of muted it. And then when you're done looking at, you know, the body and the celebration and the hands and the arms and the three drivers, because it's endurance championship, so they drive in teams of 2 and 3, you notice that the one in front still has his helmet on, whereas the other two don't. And he's still got, you know, his neck brace and the kind of yellow chromed side. And you can see when you zoom in, you can see all of the people on the side of the frame that are celebrating next to the barrier, probably all Ferrari pit people that are celebrating with him. And then you notice the blue of the helmet and how that's muted as well, but it's punchy and it separates from the background of kind of green hue in there, in that tint. Takes you away from all of that bokeh in the background, all of that out of focus subjectness in the background because of the color contrast that is right there in front of you. And it's such a beautifully framed shot. And now let's take that exact same look, but now we're going to be at Imola. And I'm pretty confident it might even be the same driver, but it's definitely the same team. But now look at the colors. These are not muted. These are not pulled back. These are not raised lightness. This is a deeply saturated red and yellow and even blue. It's a wonderfully color contrasted frame because you have the blue in the background of the World Endurance Championship, and that pulls you down into the helmet of the blue, which then pulls you into the face through the visor and the perfect eyes looking at the person. That now you're looking at the hands, the clasp, the yes, we did it, the celebration of the grit and the grind, and the celebration you can just see in the hands and in the eyes. And the photographer in this, probably right here, like you can see the shoulder is just out of frame. This is definitely a wide lens. I'm gonna say no further than 20. It's probably between 16 and 20, somewhere around there. The hand is very much in front of the face. It's not really like here, it's all the way out here, and you can tell that it's that far by the perception of the lens, by the focal length. Change the focal length, it changes how things are compressed. Kind of assume you know that at this point. And those reds and yellows just continue to be so deep that it also makes his eyes stand out. His eyes are just little glints of green in the visor, in the open visor, in the open helmet, and it's such a wonderfully framed shots. But this same shooter does not only get these kinds of images. This photographer under DPPI Images knows how to pull character and knows how to place himself around the track and in the track to get exactly the shots that he wants. And it's very obvious that he waits for them, presses that trigger, and moves on for the next one in his shot list in his head. And I can say that because here's the very next shot. He's clearly waited for not just the greenery, the bushes as a foreground element, but the bystander, the cyclist, on what is clearly some essence of a public road, or maybe just like a walk-by area that people aren't allowed to stay at, but they have to walk through, but they can still see the track. The cyclist is going through the frame, perfect positioning of him looking back at the track and watching what is happening, because you've got 3 cars coming down that pathway towards the shooter, towards the cyclist. And it would be a great shot if it stopped there. But if you actually look further, and here is where we get back into depth, the physical depth behind the foliage, you now see layers and layers and layers and layers of buildings, and they're not all the same generation. They are a mix of old and new, and the juxtaposition between all of this happening in one frame is gorgeous, and I can't say that enough. And I'm going to continue on that path with this next shot in terms of a juxtaposition, in terms of a difference between old and new in the same frame. The relationship happening in this shot of modern generation endurance race car in a shot on a track being framed by a very clearly at least few 100-year-old building. The shingles are all different hues. The bricks are different layers and different ages, and everything frames the track just so perfectly, and you're just left with this wonderful photo that is a timepiece and timeless. And it's amazing and it's wonderful, and I don't know how many other adjectives I can think of to describe this, and so I just need to move on. I could get lost in that photo. And this one's hard to describe, but I'm gonna try. This is my favorite shot that this photographer was able to get from this carousel online that I pulled. It's my favorite because, how do I word this? Who among us has not been one of these two people and trying to peek their head through, peek their eye into an open space to watch what is happening? Who can say that they have not done this, regardless of their age? Whether you're 2 years old or 82, who among us has not done this at many stages in our life? This encapsulates so much humanism that I can't really describe it past that. And this honestly is an exact moment of how I would describe what I was talking about earlier, where the photographers at DPPI Images, they choose their moments. They are consciously making decisions of where to be and when to be, and what is it that they're trying to capture, and they're not done until they have captured it. And once they have, they move on to the next one. Everything about this photo, to me, is perfect, because if you know what it is, it's flawless. But I would pair it with like one of the other shots from this carousel next to it on the wall for just reference point. So yeah, there it is. DPPI Images. They ain't messing around. Ain't. Feels weird. Been in Tennessee for too long, and now I'm hearing that, but I can't say it. Nope. They're not fucking around. DPPI's photographers are documenting motorsport like it's a religion, and every single frame is scripture. Like I said earlier, I didn't have to venture too deep into their online portfolio on Instagram. They've been around since 1965. I literally pulled the shots that spoke to me from the past couple weeks. Imagine if you did a deep dive. But on that same note, the reason I wanted to talk about DPPI Images exactly because it's not a single photographer. The best piece of advice that I can give is to not only follow individual photographers, follow agencies. They have under their wing a multitude of shooters that cover a wide array of different events, and therefore they have different styles for their clients and for their looks. So if you guys have a photograph or photographer that you would like me to check out because you got inspired and you think maybe I would, hit me up. My email is down below in the description, like always. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe button. It does help. I still don't know if I did that wrong. If I did, cool. If I didn't, also cool. And if you did not enjoy this video, too bad, so sad. Go watch something else. That is all that I have today for episode 5 on DPPI Images, and I will see all of you guys on episode 6. Shit. I need 2 hands now. I'll see you there.